In the lands between, there is more than one group of assassins that strike fear into the hearts of those who know the rumors of their existence. The most famous of these killers for hire would be the Black Knife Assassins, as their part in the Night of the Dark Plot, the night where everything changed in the lands between, has made them a known threat to any who understand how we came to live in this shattered land. Aside from the Black Knives, we have the Confessors, the Round Table Hold assassins, contracted by the fingers themselves, who would hunt fellow Tarnish who had strayed from their guidance. These are the two best-known factions of assassins of the lands between, but there is another who operates in the shadows, a group that may be older than either of their competitors. The Ravenmount assassins have very little presence in the world today, but their garb and weaponry point toward the possibility of a storied history that is now lost to us. Welcome back to Elden Lore, our weekly lore series diving into the stories of the people, places, and factions of the lands between. If this is your first time checking out this series, welcome, and thank you for watching our content. With over 100 lore dives in our ever-growing playlist, we're confident you can find the answer to any lingering questions you have about the lands between. If by chance you don't see what you're looking for, just let us know and we'll see what we can dig up for you. If by the end of the video you think we've earned it, please consider subscribing to the channel. It goes a long way in helping us stay relevant in YouTube's algorithm, and helps us keep up the work on this series. We also have a Discord where you can talk to other FromSoft fans about your favorite Elden Ring lore and theories. With Shadow of the Erdtree so close, you can rest assured we're going to be diving into every new NPC and story hidden within the new armor and weapons we're sure to gather. With that said, thanks for taking the time to hang out with us today. Now let's get back to the story at hand. The first look at the Ravenmount assassins we get is likely through the Claw Talisman, an item you may have picked up during your exploration of Stormvale Castle. This item is described as a talisman depicting a claw and an assassin, enhances jump attacks. The Assassins of Ravenmount are killers by trade. They assail their victims while dressed as birds of prey. We can see in the bronze of the talisman the feathered cape, hood, skeletal mask, and weapons that these assassins are said to wield. And finding this item so early in the game may give you the impression that this faction is a somewhat renowned group, and perhaps they once were, but by the time we begin our journey, this is no longer the case. In-game, we are only ever able to face a single Assassin of Ravenmount, and they can only be encountered if we follow Yura's questline. Much of what we learn about this faction of killers comes from his equipment, as well as his style of fighting. The assassin wields the Raptor Talons, which are described as a claw comprised of two sharp, thin blades, wielded by the Assassins of Ravenmount. This weapon allows them to initiate the attacks of deathbirds. Besides excelling at airborne attacks, its charge attack mimics the vicious swoop of a bird of prey. This is one of the very few claw-type weapons that can be obtained during our time traveling the lands between, and its attack set focuses on speed and blood loss. The way these assassins fight is almost like a dance, using swift and sweeping motions in order to let the blood of their prey. But these blades are not the only weapons they use. The Ravenmount assassins also fight using fan daggers, weapons specifically associated with their group. A set of 5 throwing knives bundled together, a concealed weapon cherished by the Raptor assassins. The thin knives fan out when thrown, dealing damage to the target. Each knife deals paltry damage, but the wide range makes it suitable for constraining enemies. These knives are used to interrupt their targets, so that the assassin can follow up with a flurry of slashing attacks that inflict blood loss. The focus on calling them birds of prey that we saw with the Raptor Talons is elaborated on when it comes to their armor. The Ravenmount assassins wear the Raptor's black feathers, which is a robe crafted with the black feathers of a bird of prey, worn by the Assassins of Ravenmount, a ritual implement for transforming into a death bird, if only by imitation. We are birds of prey, bringers of death. They also wear a mask made of bone called the skeletal mask, which tells us it is a skeletal mask that tightly grips the face, worn by the Assassins of Ravenmount. This ritual implement relentlessly digs into the wearer's face, preserving one's human instincts while dressed in imitation of the Deathbirds. From these pieces of armor, as well as their weapon, we see a strong connection between the Ravenmount assassins and the Deathbirds. And given that Deathbirds belong to a long-dead religion, which worship of the Erdtree has all but replaced, we believe these hired killers' origins stretch back farther than most factions of the Lands Between. After all, while there are still precious few Deathbirds that will show themselves if we enter their territory, we think it's safe to assume these fearsome creatures were no longer common knowledge across the majority of this land. I believe Ravenmount is a long-conquered area somewhere in the Lands Between that previously revered the Deathbirds due to the assassins being referred to as of Ravenmount. They adorn themselves with black feathers reminiscent of what may have been their deity, and they dole out death using tactics they've developed through careful observation of the Deathbirds themselves. They throw blades reminiscent of feathers, they wield cutting claws shaped like talons, and they even utilize an Ash of War that allows them to momentarily touch the sky. Raptor of the Mists is our reward for helping Yura defeat the only Ravenmount assassin we ever find. This Ash of War grants an armament the keen affinity and the following skill. Raptor of the Mists. Duck into a low stance, momentarily vanishing. If an enemy attack connects, avian wings will allow for a quick escape into the air. While these wings allow them to retreat, it seems they didn't work well enough to keep these assassins alive, since the sole member of their order has been reduced to acting as a bloody finger for Moog, perhaps as a way to continue to use his skills and deal death at someone else's command. This assassin is nothing more than a loaded gun waiting for a target, and the Moogwyn dynasty is brimming with possible assassination requests in order to fill Moog's blood pools. One of the most interesting things about the Ravenmount assassins, and the best clue I believe to deciphering what happened to their order, is that the only one you can do battle with does not drop their armor set. The only way to obtain the armor of a Ravenmount assassin, as well as their weapon, is to find it in the Sage's Cave in the Altus Plateau. You would think that there's no real significance to these items being housed in this cave, but if we consider Necromancer Garrus, as well as this area's secret boss, we think a clearer picture can be painted. Necromancer Garrus is a heretical sage driven from his home due to his practices, and we have another video which dives into his story. Suffice to say, he is closely related to magic dealing with death. If this cave was meant to be his hideaway to study anything related to death magic, it would make sense that the armor of assassins who made themselves out to be living embodiments of death themselves would be here. However, when it comes to how this armor came to be here, I believe the Black Knife Assassin hidden deep within the Sage's Cave holds the answer. Perhaps this armor and weapon were kept as trophies by the Black Knife Assassin who killed this adherent to Ravenmount. It may just be that there is only one Ravenmount assassin left in the world because his brothers and sisters were murdered by the Black Knives, either as a way to stymie the competition or due to a contract they needed to fulfill. After all, the Black Knives are said to be Numen and associated with Marika herself. What if they were ordered by the goddess to do away with the Ravenmount assassins due to their relationship to the Deathbirds? This would play well into what we know of the Golden Order either stamping out or appropriating cultures that stood in opposition to them. There isn't much more we can learn about the Ravenmount assassins, as information on them has been lost to time outside of what we discussed already. But there is one other item found in the Sage's Cave that we believe may shed some light on what happened to this faction, and it's likely related to the upcoming DLC and the Land of Shadow. So bear with us as we dive into some wild speculation. Within the Sage's Cave, we also find the Candletree wooden shield, which various people digging through the game right now are claiming may be associated with Mikola and the Land of Shadow. The emblem on this shield is reminiscent of the ghostly candles we see in the overworld, as well as the candles found in the Halig Tree, and its description tells us it is thought to represent a surreptitious prophecy of cardinal sin. The lit candle tree design was forbidden. What is this cardinal sin? Is it the sin of burning the Erdtree? Or a sin committed long ago by Mesmer the Impaler? Perhaps this shield is found in the same cave as the armor and weapons of the Ravenmount assassins, because they too now reside in the Land of Shadow. After all, we do see an NPC on a throne in the DLC trailer, with neck ornamentation that one could describe as vaguely feather-like. I don't have a lot of confidence in this theory, but I do think it's something worth considering going into Shadow of the Erdtree. Who knows? Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised by the presence of more Ravenmount assassins to do battle with, as we explore the Land of Shadow. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the Ravenmount assassins and their possible origins. Why do you think there's only one assassin of Ravenmount left in the Lands Between? Were they all killed off by their rival faction, the Black Knife Assassins? Were they banished to the Land of Shadow upon Marika's ascension to Queen? Did they exist alongside the Deathbirds in an age before the Erdtree? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and set notifications to all so you never miss out on any of our lore dives. We look forward to seeing you next week for more Elden Lore.